Hi everyone, welcome back to the Be Rich podcast. Another day, another session with Arun. Him and his interesting questions. Where he's getting clarity on how money works and economies work. On that note, what do you have for us today? No.
Sir, a viewer has asked a question. Does the exports of a country becomes competitive in the market by the currency weakening? If you can throw some light on it, it would be helpful.
Let's take like case in point of Egypt. What's happening in Egypt?
Okay.
Egypt has been suffering from high inflation and shortage of hard cash. Hard cash is physical currency, right? That has been a shortage and inflation is soaring. Now, when inflation is soaring, there are two ways to control the soaring inflation, right? To control the inflation, what the banks do is they raise the cost, central banks raise the cost of borrowing. That's what Fed has also been doing. European central banks have been doing, correct? Why do they raise interest rate? To choke money supply in the market. When money supply is choked, that means there's less money in people's hand to buy goods. When there's less money to buy goods, demand drops. When demand drops, inflation cools. So Egypt has been having a runaway inflation for some time. And International Monetary Fund, IMF, has promised to help them out by giving them a bailout. A loan for around $3 to $8 billion is what has been promised for this time. But Egypt's problem is compounded. Because before the Russian-Ukraine war happened, Egypt was in a very good position. It got choked because it depends on Russian food grain, Russian oil, everything got choked. Because Egypt at the same time is a close ally of Europe. What happened was they decided to build a new capital. If you've ever been to Cairo, I've been to Cairo. It's very crowded. It's a very, very old city. It's an ancient city. But modern requirements are not met there. Because you cannot take a narrow road and widen it. Like in Chennai, you cannot go to Parry corner and suddenly say, I'm going to broaden this road by... Even if you're a dictator, you cannot do it, which Sisi cannot do. So what he decided is build a new capital for Egypt. They've been building, spending a lot of money. And that's cost. Building a new city costs a lot of money. So there's been spending and Saudis have been investing. UAE is also promised and UAE has also been investing. Then the pandemic happened. Then, of course, the Russian-Ukraine conflict happened. Both of this sent Egypt into a severe economic crisis. Inflation is going through the roof. Hard cash is having a problem. And international investors were having questions about the stability of Egypt, and they started pulling their money out because they felt the government is not spending wisely. Right? They are not being diligent in their spending. So Egypt had no choice but to reach out to IMF. IMF has said they will do this, but they had a list. IMF will always say, okay, like the doctor says, no, I'll give you this medicine to help you with your diabetes, but you must also do some dieting, do some exercising. You just cannot keep taking medicine and, not do dieting and change your lifestyle. So you have to change your lifestyle is what IMF said. So Egypt has agreed. So to deal with this inflation, Egypt has increased its key interest rate. That means to borrow money within Egypt becomes more expensive for Egyptian businesses and for people who want to take a loan in Egypt. It gets more expensive. This way, like I said, it will drop demand because people have less money in their hand and they can't buy as much. So inflation will cool off. And another thing they have done is to bolster Egyptian currency and export from Egypt. They've devalued their currency. So what does devalue mean? Devalue means, let's say you are getting 80 rupees to a dollar. Now you only, for every dollar, you will get, let's say, 800 rupees. I'm just saying an example. So what happens is it becomes easier to export from Egypt. Okay. And he's hoping it will foster people to set up businesses in Egypt. So exporting from Egypt will become cheaper because their main market is just the Mediterranean Sea. You cross here in Europe. So let's say you put up a garment factory. It was costing you $10 to make a t-shirt. Now it will cost you maybe $5, $6. So that much more incentivizing export. But what happens when you do devaluation is everything Egypt wants is being imported, like oil and other fuel, everything is imported. That cost will go up. So if you look at it like that, oil prices will go up, medicine prices will go up, everything will go up, whichever is being bought in dollars. So it is a fine balance. But Egypt right now has no choice because this is one of the prerequisite conditions from IMF before it gives out the loan. And UAE is also committed investing around $35 billion. They will also want Egypt to follow certain rules because they're putting money into Egypt. They'll want. So what's happened is outside investors now are looking at Egypt as an opportunity to invest money into. So we'll have to wait and watch. Egypt's in a tough place. And this is how, even in India, when rupee, Anand keeps saying, no, when rupee becomes weaker against the dollar, right, you're getting more rupees for the dollar. He says, look at pharma sector, look at IT sector, or any company which is taking payment in dollars. Because what happens is their profit margin increases. Even if the rupee goes down by just say 3-4%, but when you see the maths behind it, let's say a payment you're receiving is in 1,500 crores, few more percentage is a lot of crores. Because you're increasing it by crores. So that is the reason why he says look at it. And same way, he says avoid companies which are borrowing in dollars.
Like Vedanta.
Yes, if they're borrowing in dollars, their cost of borrowing is just going up by those few percentage points. It might look like a few percentage points, but when you see number of crores, that's a lot of crores it's going up by. So this is where you have to be very careful when you see the rupee moving against the dollar. Now the flip of it is, as a value investor, what does it do? Well, as a value investor, these are all short-term up and down, right? What Anand says to consider is, it's a good time to buy and move into this company. But when you move in, he's not saying that immediately if the dollar rupee thing changes, you should sell that company. Saying you buy into it so you can move into that company, then hold it for 5-10 years. Understand? So that is just showing an entry point. It is not a strategy to invest and disinvest. So to sell. So keep that in mind. Keep currency fluctuations, yes. But as a value investor, you're looking at it as an individual company. So this question, what they asked about rupee and devaluation, how does it export help? It becomes cheaper to export. For every dollar, you're getting more rupees. So your cost of making a goods and sending it out of India, where you're doing it in rupees, you're paying your laborers in rupees. You're paying a tax in rupees. So it becomes cheaper for you.
So they have increased by 600 points. So in India, they change around 30-40 points. But here they have changed around 600 basis points.
Yeah, because the IMF is demanding. He doesn't want to. Because if he raises the interest rates like this inside Egypt, it is a lot of pain for people. Egyptians will feel a lot of pain. Imagine your home loan rate going from 5% going to suddenly 15%. It's really painful. Sudden increase. So for Egyptians, there's a lot of pain. But the pain is short term. If they continue following what IMF is saying, and they continue restructuring themselves and cut down spending, for the time being, he'll have to halt building that new city. I know it's an ambitious project. He's got his mind set on it. He's not getting any younger, so he'll want to see it done in his lifetime. I get it. But for the good of the country, he'll have to probably put a pause on it, wait for 4-5 years, and then pick it up after that. That's why even he's keen this Israeli thing ends. Israeli conflict ends. He's also very keen this Ukraine-Russia thing ends. Because it will immediately free up the world from the stresses of it. So he's also hoping that Russia and Ukraine will find some solution soon. Israel and Palestine will find some solution soon. But it's very unlikely because the Palestine-Israel fight has been going on for 70 odd years. Just because Egypt needs them to end it fast. Fast. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Arun about this, about how rupee devaluing against the dollar affects exporting from India. Thanks for watching the podcast, guys, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye.
Thank you.